Hey guys, it's Miss Bowen. We're doing another art lesson today. I need you to make sure that you have out your flexible cutting board that we're going to use as our clay protection here on our mat. Get your bag out that I sent you with your supplies in it. You're going to need some of your Play-Doh. Hopefully you've had time to pick some of that up by now. Remember, I did send you one bag of the magic clay, but that is a one and done. So the one time you use it, it can't be reused. So if you were to not have Play-Doh today, but you have this, you can use it. If not, hopefully you've got your Play-Doh. If you're still without Play-Doh supplies and you've already used your magic dough, then just watch us today. And hopefully when you have a chance, you can pick some Play-Doh up and continue with us. So any color of Play-Doh is fine. We're just going to review for a few minutes what we have already learned. In our first lesson, that wasn't good. Let me try it again. In our first lesson, we learned about 3 different techniques. We had the techniques of rolling, if you remember that. And I always take my clay, no matter what size it is, and tear it in half, so it's easier to use. So we have the rolling technique of applying a little pressure as we roll our hands around in the palm of our hand. And when we do that, we get a smooth ball. The other technique we did was coiling. So I'm going to tear this in half again. So remember, that would be a 4th. Put that in my hand and roll it around till I get a ball. And remember, we said the coiling technique is like you're rubbing your hands because you're cold. So you put it between the palms of your hands and you rub back and forth, and it starts making a rope or a snake, spaghetti, whatever you want to call it. But the actual clay term for this is coiling, okay? So we've got, let me make another ball real quick. We've got rolling for a smooth ball. We've got the coiling technique. We talked about the pinching technique, so let's do that again. That's where we roll a ball. We stick our thumb in it, like that. And then we started pinching around the edges. And if you remember, we made what we called a pinch pot. We talked about how Native Americans made clay out of dirt and sediments, and that's how they made some pottery. Okay, so we've got pinching, rolling, coiling, and then we also talked about flattening. Flattening would just be where we press down, or we could use a rolling pin, just like we were baking, and we could flatten things out. If you remember when we made our little car, we took some little round balls and we just put them between our finger and our thumb and flattened them, made little donuts, little round circles. So today, what we're going to try to do is learn how to sculpt a face using these techniques. Okay? So I'm going to pick all my dough back up. And if you have little pieces that flake off, you can just touch it with your big wad and it just picks it right up. Okay? So I'm going to go in half again, because again, that's just the easiest to control. I will be using this half to make things that are going to go on my face, and I'm going to use this half to actually sculpt the skull. So let's do some rolling technique. I'm applying pressure while I roll. What that's going to do is give me a nice round ball that will be nice and smooth. See how smooth that is? Now we're going to do something called pinching. Remember, we made our pinch pot. But what we're going to do is we're going to pinch a piece of this clay and pull it out away from the other. Now, if we were making a bird, do you see how the side profile of that would make the beak of the bird? I could pinch it again a few more times, and I'd have a big long beak on a bird. We just finished talking about penguins. We could have made one out of clay, couldn't we? But we're going to try to make a human face. So this would be a bird. So what I would do now is I would just kind of push this in a little bit so that I'd have more of a stubby nose. So let's mess it all up and practice it again, okay? And we won't pull this one out as far as we did on the bird. So we're gonna roll it up. we've made our ball. We're going to pinch just a little, not as much as we did on the bird. And I'm gonna pinch it the opposite way. Still kind of looks like a bird, doesn't it? Now I'm gonna take my finger and I'm gonna push that in just a little bit so that I have more of a human nose. And then I can take my hand and I can just gently kind of spread the dough back out so that it looks pretty again. It's smooth again. All the way around except for what I want still sticking out. I hope you can see that as a side profile than as a nose. See, I pulled it out, pushed it in, and now it's the side profile of a nose. And so I can take my finger and smooth this part out. So I've got my nose, I've got my skull. Let's start thinking about the eyes. Now remember I told you we're gonna need a pencil every time that we work. So what we're gonna do with this pencil is we're going to push in, and we just made an eyeball socket. Let's do the same thing on the other side. And you're like, okay, we've got our eyes. Yep, but let's make them a little more interesting. Let's set our little skull down here. And let's tear us off out of our extra dough some little bitty balls of dough. Let's roll those into little bitty circles. Now when I look, that's gonna be too big to stick in my eyeball. So I'm just gonna take half of this, see what that looks like and play with it. I'm gonna roll a little ball, and now look, I'm going to stick that eyeball inside that eye socket. I'm gonna do the same thing with this other one. I'm gonna roll it into a little ball, and I'm gonna put that into the eyeball socket. Now it's starting to look more like a real face because we have the socket like we have on a human skull, and now we've inserted an eyeball. So let's give a little more detail to this again with our pencil. We're gonna put the little pupil on the inside with just one little dot. It is so interesting how this starts looking like a real person. Okay? So we rolled a ball, we pinched out a nose, we used our finger to smooth it, we used our pencil then to create our eyeball sockets, and then we rolled out two little balls to put in as eyeballs, and now we've added those details. Now, I know what you're thinking. We're gonna add even more to the eye, so don't start jumping in by drawing eyelashes yet. Give me a second. I want you to grab a little bit more of your extra dough over here, and we're going to do that coiling technique. Remember the coiling? That's where we roll it in a ball first, and then we're gonna warm our hands up to make a snake. So I just made a snake by warming my hands up like that, going back and forth. Now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna tear off just a little piece of this coiling, and that's what I'm gonna use to make an eyebrow on my face. See that? It's starting to look more like a real person. I'm gonna tear off another little piece of what I had coiled. And I'm going to make my second eyebrow. Do you see how it's starting to look like a real person? It's kind of cool. Then I'm going to take my pencil, and now I can go in here and I can draw some little eyelashes above the eye and maybe a few little lashes below the eye. And if I wanted to, I could even do the little, very carefully so it wouldn't come off, I could do the little lines and give some texture if I wanted to. If I wanted them to be bushy eyebrows, or I could make them slimmer eyebrows. Okay? Eyebrows can say a lot. If you draw them where they're arched, it's like they look surprised, or you could draw them with one up, one down like they're confused. That could add to your face. Now we're also gonna take our pencil now and we're gonna go in here on the nose, and we're gonna do two holes for the nostrils on the nose because you have two breathing holes on your nostrils. Okay? Now, let's make this guy smile. He could be mean, but let's not make him mean. We're gonna take our pencil now, or actually, we could use that butter knife that I gave you. That might be easier. And we're just gonna make some indentions around here. And just like that, he's smiling at us. See that? All right, that's a simple sculpted face. Now, let's think about all the things that we could do to this. Let's talk about hair. He could be bald, he could have a mohawk, he could have long hair, he could have short hair. You could pick up a different color Play-Doh just to do his hair. I'm just gonna stick with the same Play-Doh. That's just me. All right, so I'm gonna even half what I had, so again, I'm back to a fourth. And let me show you some different things you could do. You could do the rounding and then the coiling, and you could end up with a really, really long coil, okay? You could even put it on your board. I talked about for my little people, if your hands aren't big enough, you could do your coiling on the board. I want most people to try to do it in the palm of their hand. But when you get to making these coils this long and this skinny, you might want to use the board too. Okay? So now look, depending upon how thick I want to make this, I now can tear this off and I can make any kind of hairdo you can think of. If I want this to be a girl, I can give her this long hair like this. And I can do that all the way around her head. Like so and like so, and I would make some more of it. Let me show you what she's starting to look like. See how she's got hair, and then I can style it. I can turn it up, I can make her a ponytail, I can make a mohawk, I can make bangs. I could do anything with this. So that's coiling for the hair. So I'm gonna take the coiling hair off. Let's talk about what it would look like if we just decide to flatten it, okay? So let's use our rolling pin, and we're gonna roll this out flat, like this. And we could actually cut her a hairdo. Let's make, I keep saying her, but you boys can make yours a boy, okay? Let's say I want to do it like that, and then I want to do, let me cut this off here. Now I'm gonna make bangs. Okay, so I'm gonna pull up this extra that I cut off like this. And I might want to try to do it like this. I might want to try to give a hairdo with bangs and make this longer in the back so it looks like this. I could do something really crazy where I pull each of these little pieces up. Kind of give that crazy mohawk look. The possibilities of what you want to do for hair are absolutely endless, because the possibilities of what we do with our own human hair are absolutely endless. So I'll leave you to play with that, but stop working on your hair for a minute and let's talk about some accessories, okay? And then you can come back and fix your hair any way you want. You might want to make a hat. Just think about that. All right, so let's roll it around. Do you remember when we made our pinch pot a few minutes ago? We did a ball, stuck our thumb in it, and then what did we do? We pinch around the sides to make a piece of pottery. Makes a hole in the center. Well, that also makes an excellent hat, boys and girls. You could put a little pom-pom on top of it for a winter hat. You can make it pointed, turn it into a witch's hat. You could add a bill on the front of it so that it is a baseball hat. Let me show you how to do that. We'll take some of this off. We'll go back and make a ball. I'm gonna do my pinch pot. Pinch around. So I've got the top of a hat. And then I could take this and just flatten it. I'm just gonna flatten it like a baseball hat. I'm gonna add this piece to the top of it. And all of a sudden, if I kind of mish them together, it looks like I made a little baseball hat. And so I could put a baseball hat on my little person. And that's kind of what I ended up with. So your possibilities are endless for hair. Your possibilities are endless for a hat. You can make a scarf to go around the neck. And then of course you could advance and make more of the body. But I thought today we would just work on sculpting faces. Now let's talk about careers for a minute. You could do this with real clay, let it harden, and somebody might want to buy your figurines. You could turn clay into jewelry, and we will be doing that in one of our upcoming lessons, and I'll show you how you would do that out of real clay, and then when it hardens, you put wire and silverware on it to where you actually turn it into jewelry. Of course, we're going to be using Play-Doh while we're doing all of our learning, but if you ever did it with real clay and it hardened, you could really make yourself some jewelry out of it. Another thing is, have you ever thought about being a cake decorator? Instead of making it out of Play-Doh, which is not edible, so please don't even try to eat this, you can make it out of something called fondant. And fondant is a clay-like icing that's used on cupcakes and cakes. And people get paid big money to sculpt figures. This kind of looks like a little piggy man. To do figures and flowers that then they can use on cakes that people could actually eat. So there's lots of careers in sculpting besides just sculpting for the enjoyment of it. I hope you enjoyed today. Each time we will review those techniques of rounding and coiling and flattening and pinching, because we use those in everything we make. When you come back in our next lesson next week, we're going to make flowers and trees. And those are things you might want to actually make out of real fondant sometimes and use on a cake or on a cupcake, just so that you will have that skill to add to your toolbox of knowledge. And then the week after that, we will do some jewelry. So this is how you would make sculptures for faces of people or for animals, okay? And I hope you had a good time today. So go back and take the hat off, play with different kinds of hair, but make me a promise, when you finally get your face looking the way you want it to look, take a picture of it and send it to me so I can share it with everybody during our hive or our morning meeting so they can see how our club work is going. All right, I hope you enjoyed this. I love playing with Play-Doh. It's kind of therapeutic, it's calming. It's just fun to do. So I hope you had fun joining me today, and we will see you next time.